So the scientific frames that I bring to bear for the science of psychology, okay, is that it's designed to understand, the first thing it's designed to understand is animal mental behavior, okay, which people cross out the mental, but that's a big mistake. Animal mental behavior is the behavior of the animal as a whole, okay? And the theory that I use for that is called behavioral investment theory. And what it says is that the brain, nervous system, body is an investment behavioral. It expends work energy to control the flow of resources toward things and away from things, okay? And this basic frame, I won't get into specifics, but what it does is it takes key insights from cognitive science, neuroscience, evolutionary theory, okay, behavioral science, ethology, and a few other places, ties them together, say, oh, we do have a scientific understanding of animal mental note, adjective behavior, okay? That's the first thing, and that's different from the layer of life, and it specifies that. And so this is an investment pattern. And then it follows the evolution of animal behavior into social animal behavior, and in particular, social primate behavior, and builds a model of human social primate behavior, okay, right before language, about how we create attachment systems, competitive systems, and cooperative systems in self-other complicated network relations. This thing called the influence matrix. And what it says is our animal mental behavior as animals, mammals, and primates is fundamentally invested in controlling the environment in general, and then managing influence and relational value in our social networks. And these two meta theories take our animal agent stuff and our relational stuff together and gives you a frame for us as primates, okay? And they're meta theories then about our primate self, our id, to use the classic Freudian term, okay? The horse. And then on top of that is a rider, okay? A justifier. I have a frame called Justification Systems Theory that explains how we went from primates to cultured persons by the process by which we build propositional networks that legitimize is and ought inside of us, and as collectively, justification systems, they legitimize is and ought, okay, propositionally. And that, by the way, is what turned us from primates into persons, all right? And all of this then is a basic framework for human mental behavior, meaning we can sit from the third person, we can watch animals invest, we can watch them influence each other, we can watch humans justify why they do what they do from a third person perspective, okay? And then it specifies that basic psychology's task is animal mental behavior, right? And then human psychology's task is human mental behavior, jumps a whole nother level because we have socialization, language, and justification and culture, okay? Human mental behavior can be framed by behavioral investment, influence, and justification processes from the outside. I sometimes call JI dynamics, justification, investment, influence, okay? These are the big frames for the understanding the general processes that guide human interaction. Now what we do, and so now you have basic psychology, human psychology. That's the science perspective. Generalized nomothetic principles that could then be applied to then say, hey, this is what should be operating in general. Now, science itself is not specifically concerned with the unique historical idiographic particular, meaning that science doesn't explain why Napoleon lost the war at Waterloo. I mean, it will explain why people might fight, right? Which actually historians and archaeologists to determine the specifics. You don't develop a law that says Napoleon lost at Waterloo, okay? Because so if the science is about these kind of problems, real life is very different than science theory. Real life is historically contingent, okay? The other thing that science is it's third person, at least modern empirical natural science, and it observes behavior, okay? What it can't see is the subjective conscious experience of being, okay? So I have a system called the tree of knowledge system, and that affords the science mapping, okay? And I have a little thing that says icon, it's called the little I-quad coin, okay? And what that I-quad coin has a symbolizes of the unique idiographic person, the psyche position from our particular points of view in the real, okay? And what I would argue is the psychotherapist, all right, if a patient comes to see me, I bring my frames of general human mental behavior and they bring their psyche, okay? And then I listen, hey, so what brings you in today? They justify their presenting problem. I watch the way they invest in influence with me. And then I empathize with their unique particular psyche, okay, which is their first person experience of being. And then together we actually, you can argue, we create a unique intersubjective crucible, a participatory relation of my psyche and their psyche. And then we would want to understand from general principle perspectives and the unique kinds of patternings of interrelation about what are the identified problems that you could focus on, what would be the kinds of mechanisms that got them there, and what would be the potential mechanisms that you could then elicit processes that would afford adaptive outcomes, and then tie those to particular types of principles that we could then share. So we'd have an evidence-based theoretical empirical frame for the principles and processes to address problems and cultivate mechanisms that are consistently oriented to positive outcome.